Welcome back to the channel. And today we want to talk about what's been happening on the Steem blockchain during this, what are some calling a hostile takeover by Justin Soon of Tron. So I'm doing this video from my bed, guys. Actually, I'm in the bed. I'm not sick. I'm just really tired. Been a very tiring last couple of days. So if I sound a little bit drowsy or something like that, that's why this video may come out that way. So sorry about that, but I was either get that video out this way or I was probably going to sleep without anything. And I want to weigh in and get y'all some information about the story. So this has been an interesting set of events. And of course, it starts with Justin Soon acquiring the flagship application on the Steem blockchain known as Steemit. Now, Steemit had long been confused. I like to say, due to the well branding of the Steemit application, it caused many to mistake Steemit for Steem, right? In other words, Steemit is just a social media application that runs on the Steem chain. And it was always confusing to a lot of people outside of Steem because whenever they would have a problem with the Steem blockchain, they would say, oh, they start talking about the upvotes and generally referring to ideas like Steem. But the big issue with all of this was that that was just one application on the Steem chain, and their whole outlook on the Steem blockchain was based on that one application. Steem it as to say that if they thought that the upvotes were conducted unfairly or something to that effect, they were more so pointing in direction to Steem it and not the many other dApps and applications that ran on the Steem blockchain. But we fast forward to where we get this situation where Justin Soon buys Steem it, but he also buys a large amount of Steem, the cryptocurrency itself, large amount of stake and control that has influence and voting, right? When it's staked. Uh, and of course, now referring to delegated proof of stake. This is a consensus model and answer to problems with proof of work, right? And many of us in the crypto space, we understand proof of work and the issues with it, from energy consumption to just how it works. And with delegated proof of work, there is a great deal of less nodes being run, but it has a voting mechanism, a more democratic model where people can vote on these witness validators, these witnesses that run the nodes, right? Which would be like equivalent to what miners do. Um, the issue though is through this process where you can vote basically on these witnesses who are going to be the block producers. It's based on your influence in your state in the Steem blockchain. So it's really based on money. If you have enough stake, you have enough money, you get to put these people have more voting power, as it were. So because this voting system, as it were, although it does represent a certain ideas of democracy in it, because it's money at its core, that in itself creates, many issues, right? And so, because it's money, just as soon, of course, being able to control so much of the Steem at stake and influence and stake weighted voting, he is able to then come in and basically vote in the witnesses he would like to see certain implementations conducted on the Steem chain. Now, of course, this all kicks off in a way that's kind of, I guess I could say, to move so fast in what would be a very fearful situation for the Steem chain, basically saying that it kind of loses the idea of decentralization. And now you got this kind of centralized figure who controls everything. Whereas I think Justin Soon coming in was trying to, in a way, address that and put people at ease about that direction. It becomes quite odd that then he jumps from that to putting in these witnesses of his own, and being now in full control, able to control the chain, implement certain types of actions that he would now have the power to do. Now, here's where the story, and what we try to do on this channel is we try to present all the information available in a very non-biased way. We are part of the Steem community, but we're a universal bridge cryptocurrency that I'm part of, and so we're part of many communities, and so we don't really have a very biased view on Justice Soom's interaction with the Steem chain in a way that I guess you could say the diehard Steem community has. But I will say this: what it seemed to transpire off information from everywhere, from different things, was that it's kind of like what happened first, and what we're getting is that it was the witnesses who acted first in an aggressive way, to freeze Justin Soon's assets, right, in Steem. Now, of course, that's a huge problem because in a very a way that I was allowed by the system that I thought was fair, Justin Soon went in using the Steem system to acquire his stake. Now, some are saying those were publicly staked funds. Those public use funds from exchanges, because Justice Soon was able to basically get the exchanges to power up and vote on his behalf in order to call the witnesses themselves hackers, or the top 20 witnesses. Now the issue was that when all this transpired, one message coming out is that the Steem witnesses acted aggressively first, right? So they kind of spun all these events, if that's true and if that's the case. As to say, they did a preemptive strike and they basically froze Justin Soon's assets, right? Now he's just made this huge purchase over about $16 million, and he doesn't have assets to his Steem, which would sound ridiculous in any kind of acquisition. If you think about it, imagine if that happened to you, if you purchased something for $16 million, and as soon as you did it, the community was able to freeze all your money. You can't touch it, you can't move, you can't do anything with it, right? And they did it in a fear response based on what they think you might do in the future. Now, that in itself creates 1,000,001 problems, of course. But whether it was Justice Soon acted first or then the witnesses acted secondly, that's some of the information came out, which then led to Justice Soon using these exchanges in order to vote in his witnesses so they could undo the actions that the Steem top 20 witnesses had done, right? So this is the full story we're getting, and of course, the Steem community is going to tell it one way, other people are going to tell it another way, and it's going to be based on agendas and biases and things like that. But like I said, here we don't do that. So if that's what happens, if that's what happened, and we know these events occur, we just don't know which in the order. Then now you got this situation where, is it fair for something like that to happen, right? These are both systems were people are through a type of gangsterism controlling the community of users to this chain. Now that's a huge problem for me, in looking at this from many events. Obviously, and I think I've done many videos in the past, and I think this has spawned many people leaving Steem and many people being in disagreement with the Steem chain. But my issue was with stake weighted voting in itself was one of those very problematic ideas where democracy was not available, right? Because people could basically buy their votes, buy their way in, basically collude with the top 20 witnesses, block producers, right? And of course, none of that represents any type of, democracy in that way or system that is going to play out fair. And it's just so many various problems with that. Um, and so this has led the situation with Justin Soon and what's happening with the Steam witnesses. So there's supposed to be a meeting taking place, a public meeting taking place. They're not sure if that's going to still happen. It may happen, right? It seems that there's going to now be a lot of aggression against these two groups, right? And I don't think it's going to be helpful for the Steem blockchain in the end to have now this big schism. Steem had already had pretty bad PR before this, and I understand the fear is what led Steem to do this, right? Witnesses, and it's kind of this era of this freedom fighting that went on. But I see a lot of concern with people being able to, through the system of Steem, act with the rules of Steem, and then be attacked based on that. You make a big purchase in the Steem chain, and then they tell you they don't like the idea, even though the system was designed that way. They don't like the idea of you being able to own that stake and control so much of the network. And instead of saying that there are inherent flaws in the Steem system itself and that is what needs to be fixed, they attack the people who are using that system, right? Big problem, huge problem. So this is where we're at with this. We don't know really what's going to happen. A lot of the conversation was that Justin Soon was going to just then create a Steem Tron token, which I think makes more sense, right? I would have thought he would just probably did that from the beginning, but create the Steem Tron token. And if Justin Soon creates a better product, he then uses that Steem Tron token, and people use that Steem Tron token, right? And the applications run on Steem, and that token is the bridge between the two. And then it's up to the Steem community to decide if they want to use Justin Soon's run control applications or not, much like every other application that runs on the Steem chain. And there is no need for any type of hostile takeovers in any sense of the idea. The same value transfer can still be established, whether they want to call it atomic swaps or whether there's some direct incentive to use a Steem Tron token. That's where I think that idea would follow. So very interesting turn of events, what happened with Steem. Another interesting thing was, as it says in this article from CoinDesk, that in the last 24 hours, 4 employees had quit. Andrew Levine, of course, we know him as Andrarchy, head of communications, Steve Garbino, and Tim Rolescape, a developer who wrote pseudonymously, and developer Michael Vandenberg. I'm a big fan of Andrarchy when I first came into Steem, how he described the economics of the Steem chain. And at that time, he seemed to be very much a stand-up guy, interested in the development and the prosperity of the Steem chain. But I must say I was very glad to see him quit and break from working with Steemit in the overall sense of where the Steem chain was going. Again, I feel like a lot of what we've seen on Steem is gangsterism. It's a type of corrupt, influential system based on money. And it causes people not to act in the best interest of the chain, but in the best interest of themselves. And because of how the chain is designed, I think it's poorly designed in that way. And because of that, it's going to continue to have problems way into the future. And whereas I don't say I agree with Justin Soon's approach and some of the things he did in response to the Steam chain. I think everybody should just took a step back and had that meeting first. I think maybe that meeting should have come at the very beginning to deal with this. I think Justin Soon should have did a lot more research in how to approach this and set up a respectful meeting in order to make sure everybody was on the same page as the witnesses as well. Um, Again, based on who acted first, them acting, if the witnesses acted prior to that, and just out of fear of what Justice Soon could do without him doing it, was kind of weird, right? It was forcing him to lock up his stake, and not being able to use that out of fear, based on fear. You're not going to get a good response to that. But because of so much confusion too with the DPoS model, delegated proof stake model, you're going to have things happen like that because of the structure of the system. So what's the answer to all this? Like, is this just going to have to work? Oh, first, let me finish off what I was saying about, Andrarchy leaving, which I thought was great, and these people leaving, because to me, that's symbolism of them leaving all of the negative things of what's going on with the Steam chain and what needs to change, right? Not just as soon coming in and trying to attempt this takeover or whatever it was, and and denouncing that, but hopefully denouncing the whole systemic issues with Steam as to the reason why this happened was due to the structure of Steam. And that's what we need to work on fixing. And if we can't get agreement on how to fix that between ourselves and the witnesses, then it's time to preserve our honor and walk away and say that we're not for this, right? So I hope that's what that was about anyway. Anyway, after saying that, let's take a look at some solutions, what I feel would be great solutions, because the project, I'm a founder of Bitcoin MYK. It actually runs on the Steem chain as well. It's a universal bridge cryptocurrency, so it runs on several chains, but you can basically, through our gateway system, move Bitcoin MYK from chain to chain. So let's talk a little bit about that. Okay, here on the Bitcoin MYK site, and Bitcoin MYK has the Bitcoin MYK token that runs on the Steem blockchain. And basically what it is this is a hub for Bitcoin MYK. It is a very interesting project. It's a Bitcoin sidechain deflation token that uses other blockchains to facilitate and move value across these chains. The token deflates against transactions, meaning the tokens actually burn every time a transaction takes place, fighting against inflation, giving it more value to the token holder. And through this hub, you can access our gateways and chains and a variety of things, and a lot of interesting things that can be done on the hub whilst you're on the hub. Video hosting can be done on the hub. Musicians, models, photographers, just these very interesting things, games can be done on the hub. But what we want to show you, in relation to what's happening with the Steem blockchain, not only is it to us quite dangerous. I take you here to our menu, and I'm going to hit social network. I'm going to show you some things real quick here, but it's quite dangerous to us to be in situations where you're going to kind of have these things happen like this, where somebody like Justice Soon could come in. He could basically implement changes to the chain, and if you're running projects or applications on the chain, then of course you would be affected by that potentially in a negative way. So that makes a very dangerous situation for DApp runners, on chains that are experiencing situations like that. But also interested in doing this ordeal was that Vitalik, who's now seemingly going to be moving Ethereum over to some type of proof of stake model because of the issues that arise with proof of work. Of course, his response to the incident of everything that was going on and what was happening had to make one think, or himself think about some of the negatives of something like the DPoS algorithm. Obviously he would have thought about that. And the issue is the way it's worked, because it could be based on such gangsterism and collusion. And this is what a lot of the Steem chain has been about, is what's created a situation where people outside the community having a very negative look on Steem. And that's been unfortunately, a side effect of a delegated proof of stake. So what's the answer to that, right? When you have those type of situations? Well, what we've done here is we've experimented with something called the proof of participation model. And basically what you get with it is basically a type of account-based voting. Now, of course, there are many problems with that, but how we get around it is that because we're able to piggyback off these blockchains and essentially send our tokens back and forth from the chains, then we don't really need miners. But what our miners do facilitate, we call them simulated miners, which is basically this distribution group that uses certain systems, certain algorithms, but that aren't necessarily needed to secure the chain, but fulfills a great idea of the distribution model, right? And the representation of how the value gets distributed across the chain. So it fulfills many of the ideas of what we go through with this situation, but because we don't have the burden of the resources needed to run the chains, then we also don't have the burden of allowing people with the most money to control the chain, such as what we got with the Justice Soon situation. So we think it creates a very good opportunity for us to experiment with a more account-based voting model without fear of any loss of value to the chain, and not being able to get the necessary resources to run the chain. So because of that, the Bitcoin MYK project that trades on the Steem Major Marketplace, that trades on the Memo.cash exchange, which is a Bitcoin Cash based blockchain, and what trades on the Waves exchange, which is yet another proof of stake exchange. We can curve the concept of stake weight voting in that way, and we can make the system in this method probably as fair as we're ever going to get, and it's probably as representative as we're ever going to get through blockchain technology, because we have elections every time the network grows 10 times. We have elections where the community's votes decide how the tokens get distributed back to the miners, the stimulated miners, right? So it's very interesting. It's very interesting, but I think it's one of the closest solutions to having representation, things being conducted fair. And it only works because we piggyback off the chains. If we had our own chain, this would not work, because then we would need resources to keep the chain running, which means we have to make deals with the devil, like many of the other projects have to do, by using proof of stake or stake-weighted voting mechanisms that require a lot of resources. It requires compromise, and unfortunately, it's going to create collusion and people being bought and all these things, and control. Even now, if you look at a situation like the Steem blockchain, there's nothing stopping Justin Soon from cutting deals with the best applications, moving them over to Tron. There's nothing stopping Justin Soon from basically making offers to witnesses. And right, this is real life here, guys. It's not hard to do that. It's not hard. Justin Soon is still a very, very rich man, and quite the ambitious man. And and this display from the community, whereas it did show a great deal of solidarity, I don't think in the end is going to necessarily be an overall solution for the Steem chain. Before I get out of here, just want to talk a little bit more about the Bitcoin MYK project. Tell you some stuff about our new ad program that can be used with Bitcoin MYK tokens that we think you're going to like very, very much. Okay, so we're now here on the front page of Bitcoin MYK. And what we want to show you here is we want to show you how we're setting up a new advertising program that we think is going to work very well for many of you all. So what's happening on Bitcoin MYK is kind of reminiscent of what's happening with EOS Voice, where you acquire for free the voice tokens every day, and you can use them to push your voice to the front, your articles, whatever you're trying to promote. And what we're doing here is we're creating, like, when you come on the site, creating like these like boards. They're not really, they're a mixture of advertising boards and photography, art, musicians, video hosting, and whatever you want to do. You're able to use the Bitcoin MYK token on our front page to promote whatever you like to do, right? And it could be anything, right? It can also be marketing for other products. And this is where this project gets so very interesting, because this is a product that's going to pay marketeers to market their own products for their own sales. They're going to receive back Bitcoin and YK tokens. That is because we kind of do this almost, I guess you could say, it's like a for the amount of traffic and attention value we get to the site, we're going to kick back so much in tokens to everybody who has uh, uh, an ad board promotion on the front page, right? And so how that works is you run one for 30 days. We're going to roll this out within the week. You run this thing for 30 days, and it only costs you $1 to run this ad board for 30 days, right? Now, this dollar is paid in Bitcoin MYK tokens. You pay the equivalent of $1 in Bitcoin MYK tokens, which you can get for free. You can get them through our Universal Basic Income Program. You can get it for completing free offers on the site and a variety of things. So you actually earn them free. Very similar to Voice in that way. And what happens is right then your ad board goes up, right? So your ad board goes up, and when it goes up, um, you begin to earn more tokens based on the amount of attention and traffic we get to the site. So, in other words, a marketeer can buy, it could be for anything. It could be a person promoting a referral link, right, to an exchange, a referral link to some business, their own business. What happens is they're just going to pay that $1 for the entire month to run that advertising, and while they're getting attention over to their ad, they're actually going to get a kickback of tokens from us each month. So it's a genius project idea. I've never quite seen it done this way before, and it's just the way that the cryptocurrency works and our project works that we're able to bring this to you and do it in that way. And so, for instance, if someone were to do that and take one of our ads, I'll just click here on one of the ad banners here. I'm going to attempt to click there, and it takes me to, well, in that case, it took me to Pinterest, but I was trying to go somewhere else. but it should, but it should take us to whatever you're trying to promote. In that case, it was Pinterest, but it will be your advertising that actually ends up there, right? And so that's going to be very, very interesting to use and see. If you're a musician, you're going to be able to basically play your music. Um, basically get paid for the amount of traffic we get on the page to your musical tracks. Um, it's gonna work the same way for our video. Excuse me, for our video hosting. If you're a videographer, a person who creates videos, you're basically gonna share in the traffic and value from that as well, right? So very, very cool, interesting project. We think approaches like this is going to be the answer um, to what's happening uh, in cryptocurrency in situations like delegated proof of stake, where it's more account-based voting, it's more based on your attention value, and earning your tokens is based on that as well. And because we don't have to expend the type of resources it does to run a blockchain, because we're essentially needing to be light on our feet in order to facilitate the value and movement of our cryptocurrency across multiple blockchains. Because of that, not only is it safer from an investment standpoint, because if one chain goes down, then we're on several chains, right? So not only is it safer from that perspective, then it's also just more going to make more sense into how to transfer value and basically to operate in a more fair democratic sense, which is what I think a lot of people are looking forward to. So try Bitcoin MYK today. We're trading on 3 exchanges now. We're on Steem Engine. If you're on the Steem blockchain, you probably already know about Steem Engine. It is our version of the ERC20 token that runs on the Steem blockchain. And so, basically you're able to trade these tokens, receive these tokens. Again, also trades on the Bitcoin Cash blockchain, on the Memo platform, and trades on the Waves exchange. One time known to be the Ethereum killer, which is a very fast, has a well done mobile app for our Bitcoin MYK token. And yeah, that's all I want to say in this video. Guys, tell me all what you think about what transpired with the Steem Tron thing, where you stand on it. Do you think it was right that just as soon as Steem be frozen after he spent $16 million? Or do you think that just as soon would have it just implemented a tax that would harm the Steem chain in the end? Hearing a lot of different responses from people. And although I don't have a negative feel against Steem witnesses, I know everybody's just part of the community trying to do something they believe in. And, Steem witnesses are incentivized because they're receiving obviously money from the Steem chain every day. I'm mining the Steem, the top 20 or so, or whatever it is. I understand their position. But, I also understand they're incentivized to try to keep their positions. And, sometimes that doesn't necessarily how they're able to do it, how people are able to prop them up through the state-weighted voting mechanism. People with the most money are kind of able to operate what I would deem to be more of an oligarchy or plutocracy. Because that's able to go on, I think it's going to always be a negative connotation going with the Steem blockchain. And so because of that, it's a lot of different opinions out here about this. But I would love to hear from you all directly your opinions, what you think about the situation. Who's right, who's wrong, or neither right, neither wrong. Love to hear from you guys. That's all I want to say in this video. Don't forget to join Bitcoin MYK. You'll be glad that you did. We'll leave a link in the description. And until next time, take care.